Ah, Christmas. A time of questions. Questions like, what presents will I get this year? Who will I see this year? And why did I get a cold just before recording a video? Sorry about that. But also, it's time to ask more negative questions, such as, what are the most disappointing games of the year? And I'm here to answer that for you. Here we go. Nostalgia is a wonderful thing, a beautiful feeling of delight when looking back blindly on the past and hoping the future will repeat our memories for us. This can be used against us though, as has been made evident by several Kickstarter campaigns based around retro games. The latest example of this unfortunate trend has been Ukulele by Playtonic Games. Inspired by 1990s 3D platformers such as Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64, it hoped to rekindle the magic of a genre long forgotten by the gaming industry. Even some of the original developers of those games were on hand to give the project hope, but sadly, the stars seem to have died for a reason. There's nothing especially wrong with the mechanics, but the design of everything from the characters to the environment seems woefully uninspired and boring. Think of it like a bad tribute act to your favourite band. You might get a kick out of it, but it's more likely to make you miss the original. After Crash Bandicoot had a wonderfully handled revival earlier this year, it seems sad to see another take on the genre handled with a lesser amount of love. In a stark contrast to the joyous, family-friendly design of Ukulele, Jawbreakers is a game about killing. We don't have enough of these games, don't you think? This game also came with a large slice of budget-branded nostalgia that only makes us miss the games that inspired it. Arena shooters with health bars, armour and fast movement are hard to come by on consoles, so the premise for a comeback made sense. However, a myriad of technical issues as well as a small amount of content and a tiny player base made this game near enough dead on arrival. Funnily enough, this also came from a veteran developer in the form of Chris Blazinski, creator of Gears of War. It goes to show that even the gods of our industry don't live forever. Ubisoft could be considered one of the more beloved AAA studios this year, for reasons we shall touch on later, but that doesn't make them infallible. Time after time, open world game after open world game, they have disappointed their consumers, and this year they did it twice. The greater of their evils, though, was the incredibly enticing new IP For Honor, a game where you play as all manner of historical figures such as Vikings, samurai warriors, knights, and your mum. It's almost as if we never get any games with guns in them. Someone needs to look into that. Despite the brilliant premise, the single player element felt half-baked, and the lack of players online made it hard to change up game modes when you wish. It goes to show that if a game doesn't hit on day one, it's incredibly hard to keep it alive. Now, this is a very personal disappointment, as nobody in their right mind should ever hold out hope for such a blatant cash grab. But here we are at number 7, and I cannot ignore the rage I have for Power Rangers Mega Battle. This honestly felt like a licensed movie time for the original 1995 movie, was made for the Sega Mega Drive, left in a drawer for 2 decades, and someone thought, hey, we could sell this. You could have called it unpolished, mundane and generic for the 1990s, but in 2017 it's atrocious. There are no redeeming qualities to be found anywhere in this game, even if you're a massive Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan like myself. And so it seems, nostalgia strikes again. As you've probably worked out, there have been 1 or 2 bad games this year, but all of this has worked in the favour of Nintendo's newest console, the Switch. You see, Nintendo have been developing great games over the past 30 years, and in a time where those are hard to come across without greedy business practices, this only makes people more excited about this console. Despite classics like Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey being released this year, the Switch has also received one of the worst ports of all time, in the form of WWE 2K18. Look at it. I've not edited this footage in any way, I will say nothing else, just look at it.
Talk a little about Alexa Bliss. She's licking her chops. She's thinking about it. Alexa Bliss is not someone to sleep on.
What defines a disappointment? Well, it's a concept that holds promise that doesn't live up to expectations, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is the archetypical example of this. This game exploded in popularity when it launched in early access earlier this year, thanks to its revolutionary multiplayer mode that involves over 100 players fighting to be the last one standing. Sure, there were a few issues, but there was plenty of time for these to be fixed, and then it launched in its final form, and some of us wish it hadn't. It's unoptimised, fairly ugly, glitchy, and God forbid if you play this on Xbox One, because I'm of the knowledge that it runs even worse. Put simply, it may be fixed in the near future, but as of this moment I would stay away from this game personally, especially since it has loot crates, which we'll touch on a bit later. For this section you can copy and paste everything I said about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and it still applies to Ark Survival Evolved. Except that this game is £50. 50! Everybody loves dinosaurs, but not enough to pay £50 for what is essentially a slideshow. Just don't buy it. Just don't. I might be getting an earful from the fanboys based on this next section, but please hear me out beforehand. Number 3 is all of Bethesda's VR games. This probably hurts me as much as it does you, but put simply, Skyrim, Doom and Fallout 4 VR all feel like lesser versions of great games. I understand the limitations of VR right now, both in terms of software and hardware, but that doesn't mean Bethesda are allowed to charge full price for straight ports of existing games. Oh, my apologies, Doom VFR is £20, but it's only around 4 hours long, making it a terrible value. Here's hoping they screw their heads on in time for their next VR project. Otherwise they might be held in the same regard as the next publisher on this list. EA. What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh yeah, you like money. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard all about the Star Wars Battlefront 2 controversy surrounding its gambling-based progression system. Long story short, you pay money, you're going to do better in multiplayer. Now, there's nothing wrong with microtransactions of certain types. Overwatch and Team Fortress 2 seem to handle them well. But when it makes it harder to play the game, you know eyebrows will be raised. That's the real kick in the gut. Boneheaded business decisions have crippled what could have been a wonderful game. It looks incredible, the shooting mechanics are fun, and the fighter combat is as great as it's ever been. Then again, even the single player, which isn't crippled by microtransactions, is one of the worst single player experiences I've had in years. All in all, it's worth avoiding games with EA's logo on the box from now on. Surprise, surprise, EA are back again to ruin our favourite franchises all over again. Among the many terrible deeds they have done over the past decade, this one is the most unfortunate. This resulted in a subpar, unfinished product and the closure of a newly started studio. It also might be the last we see of a long-beloved franchise, making it the most painful release to talk about for me. My most disappointing game of 2017 is Mass Effect Andromeda. What the hell happened? Apart from EA forcing a brand new studio to follow up on a well-established franchise with an engine they didn't want to use, limited money, short scheduling, and refusing to support it post-launch. In fact, there is no chance the game will be remedied now as EA has closed the studio and refused to release any future DLC or updates to this game. All of this resulted in a hollow shell of a Mass Effect game, with shockingly bad character models, very limited RPG elements, and a much smaller scale story than any of its predecessors. Simply put, it took all of the dreams of any Mass Effect fan and flushed them down the toilet. At least now Mass Effect is in a better place, and we don't have to deal with any more entries. For now. Thank you very much for watching. On a lighter note, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and I will see you later.